I'm Audrey Patterson, 22, standing in my Harvard crimson gown, scanning the sea of faces for my parents. 2 empty seats where they promised they'd be. 4 years of sacrifice for this moment, and they couldn't show. My hand trembles as I open my phone camera. If my own parents won't witness my achievement, maybe the world will. Going live now, I whisper, propping my phone as the dean approaches the microphone. My name is next. I press go live, just as my phone buzzes with the first of many unexpected calls. Before I share what happened next, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible to the people who should see you the most. Trust me, this story shows how sometimes our greatest heartbreaks lead to unexpected blessings. Growing up as the daughter of Richard and Diana Patterson meant living in the shadow of success. My father built his reputation as one of Boston's most ruthless corporate attorneys, the kind who would miss dinner for closing arguments and birthdays for depositions. My mother transformed million-dollar homes with her interior design firm, her name gracing the pages of architectural magazines, while she missed my school plays and award ceremonies. Our sprawling suburban home in Wellesley was always immaculate, ready for the frequent client dinners and networking events my parents hosted. What visitors didn't see was how that perfection came at a price. Every accomplishment in our household was measured, every failure scrutinized. Love wasn't freely given, but earned through achievement. An A- isn't going to get you into Harvard, Audrey, my father would say, sliding my report card back across the kitchen island. I was 12. From that moment, Harvard became the benchmark. Not just any Ivy League school would do. It had to be Harvard because my father had gone there, and his father before him. The Patterson legacy demanded nothing less. So I threw myself into academics with a fervor that alarmed even my teachers. Debate team captain, editor of the school newspaper, president of the National Honor Society. I slept 4 hours a night through my junior and senior years of high school, fueled by anxiety and desperation for approval. When my Harvard acceptance letter arrived, my parents actually showed up for dinner that night. Dad ordered champagne. Mom hugged me for what felt like the first time in years. "We always knew you could do it," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. My younger brother Sam, 3 years behind me and already buckling under similar expectations, squeezed my hand under the table. "They showed up for something, at least," he whispered. Sam was always the peacemaker in our family, the one who tried to bridge the emotional distance. Where I responded to our parents' conditional love with perfectionism, Sam developed charm and humor, finding ways to lighten tense family dinners and deflect attention from conflicts. The brief moment of parental pride faded quickly. By the time I packed for college, they had returned to their regular schedules. Dad drove me to campus but spent the entire trip on conference calls. Mom had a client emergency and couldn't come. "We're so proud, honey," she said over the phone that night. "This is just the beginning. Make it count." And I tried. 4 years of maintaining a near-perfect GPA while battling anxiety and insomnia. I called home weekly with updates on my accomplishments, hoping each one might be the key that unlocked genuine parental interest. The pattern continued. My parents missing parents' weekend twice, forgetting to call on my birthday, scheduling a European vacation during my honors thesis presentation. Each absence explained away with work emergencies and apologies that grew increasingly hollow. My senior year, as graduation approached, I made them promise. I actually sat them down during Christmas break, something I never did. "I need you both at graduation," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Not just physically present, but actually there. No phones, no work calls. "Just be there for me, please." They exchanged glances before my father nodded. "Of course, sweetheart. We wouldn't miss it for the world." Mom even showed me the hotel reservation she'd made months in advance. "Front row seats to see our Harvard graduate," she said, squeezing my shoulder. I believed them. That was my mistake. The night before graduation, I called to confirm our meeting spot. Dad answered, distracted as usual, but assured me they were at the hotel and looking forward to tomorrow. Then came the text at 7:15 a.m. on graduation day. "Emergency client meeting in NYC. Absolutely cannot reschedule. So sorry, honey. Take lots of pictures. We'll celebrate when you get home." No call. No real explanation. Just a text message ending with 3 heart emojis that felt like daggers. I read that text 17 times while sitting on my dorm room bed, already dressed in the black cocktail dress I'd chosen to wear under my graduation gown. My hair was professionally blown out, a graduation gift to myself, and my makeup was perfect, practiced for photographs I now realized wouldn't be taken. My hands shook so badly I could barely type a response. What could I even say? 4 years of sacrifice, of pushing myself to the breaking point, all for this moment they couldn't be bothered to witness. I called my roommate Jasmine, who had already moved out the day before. "They're not coming," I managed to say when she answered. "What? Your parents? Are you serious?" Her outrage was immediate, validating. "Audrey, that's beyond messed up. They said it's a client emergency," I explained, my voice hollow. "It's always an emergency. I swear to God, if I wasn't already in New York for my sister's thing, I'd be right there," Jasmine said. "Have you called Sam? He's in the middle of finals. I don't want to distract him." The truth was, I couldn't bear to hear the lack of surprise in my brother's voice when I told him our parents had bailed again. After hanging up, I sat in silence for exactly 2 minutes. Then I made a decision. I wouldn't let them ruin this day. I'd worked too hard, overcome too much. I straightened my shoulders, wiped away the mascara that had started to smudge under my eyes, and practiced my smile in the mirror until it looked almost convincing. The Harvard yard was transformed for commencement, ancient elms providing shade over rows of white chairs. Red and black banners hung from every available surface, and the stage gleamed under the late May sunshine. It was exactly as I'd imagined it would be, minus the 2 people who should have been there to see it. I walked through the crowd of families hugging graduates, taking photos, presenting flowers. Mothers adjusting their daughters' graduation caps, fathers clapping sons on shoulders. The weight of their absence felt physical, like stones in my pockets, dragging me down with each step. "Audrey, over here!" I turned to see my friend Taylor waving frantically, surrounded by what appeared to be her entire extended family. I pasted on my practiced smile and made my way over. "We saved you a spot." Taylor's mother enveloped me in a hug that smelled of Chanel No. 5 and maternal affection. "Where are your folks? We'd love to meet them." "Client emergency," I said, the excuse so familiar it rolled off my tongue without effort. "Last-minute thing." The pitying look in Mrs. Wilson's eyes was almost unbearable. "Well, you're welcome to join our celebration. We've got plenty of champagne and enough family to spare." Taylor's father insisted on taking photos of me for your parents, positioning me in front of Harvard's iconic Johnston Gate. I smiled until my cheeks hurt, knowing these pictures would sit unseen in my camera roll or receive a cursory, beautiful honey text from my mother days later. As the graduates began lining up, I felt the weight of absence transform into something else: anger, determination, perhaps even a strange kind of liberation. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. An idea formed, reckless and appealing. "Taylor," I said as we found our places in the alphabetical lineup, "could you do me a huge favor?" I explained my plan. Taylor would take my phone and position herself where she could film me walking across the stage. But instead of just recording it for later, she would live stream it on my social media accounts. "I want people to see this," I explained. "If my parents can't be bothered to show up, maybe others will care enough to watch." Taylor's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. "Hell yes," she said. "Let's do it." As we separated to our assigned spots, I felt a surge of something like power. For once, I was taking control of my narrative. My accomplishment wouldn't be diminished by empty seats. It would be witnessed, celebrated even if by strangers on the internet rather than the people who should have cared the most. I watched Taylor position herself at a perfect angle, testing the view on my phone. She gave me a thumbs up just as the ceremony began. The commencement speaker droned on about future possibilities and the responsibility of privilege. I barely heard the words. My focus split between the approaching moment of recognition and the knowledge that an invisible audience was gathering through my phone screen. When it was nearly time for my name to be called, I nodded at Taylor. She pressed go live and aimed the camera toward the stage. I spoke directly to the camera before heading up the steps. My family couldn't make it today, but I'd love for you all to be my guests at my Harvard graduation. It was impulsive, honest, and as I would soon discover, life-changing. Audrey Elizabeth Patterson, Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, summa cum laude. I walked across that stage with my head high, accepting my diploma with my best smile, not the practiced one from my dorm room mirror, but something more genuine. There was liberation in sharing this moment with anonymous viewers rather than performing it for my perpetually disappointed parents. The red light on my phone indicated Taylor was still filming. I gave a small wave toward her as I returned to my seat, not knowing that thousands of people were watching that wave in real time. The remainder of the ceremony passed in a blur of speeches and tradition. Only when we threw our caps in the air did Taylor rush over to me, her eyes wide with excitement. "Audrey, your live stream is blowing up." There were over 3,000 people watching, and the comments won't stop coming. I took my phone with shaking hands. The screen was flooded with notifications. Comments streaming in faster than I could read them. "Congratulations from Australia. Your parents should be ashamed. You're amazing. Harvard grad, so impressive. Your virtual family is so proud." This made me cry. My parents missed my graduation too. I scrolled in disbelief as more messages poured in. People from across the globe were celebrating with me, strangers offering the validation my own parents had withheld. "Audrey Patterson?" A woman with a press badge approached, notepad in hand. "I'm Melissa Chen from the Boston Herald. One of our digital editors noticed your live stream trending. Would you mind answering a few questions?" The interview was brief but candid. When asked why I decided to live stream my graduation, I didn't sugarcoat the truth. My parents had a last-minute work emergency. It's not the first important event they've missed, but I decided this one was too significant to go unwitnessed. I wanted to share it with people who might actually be happy for me. The rawness of my answer must have struck a chord, because by evening, clips of my live stream and quotes from the interview had spread across multiple news sites and social media platforms. "Harvard grad deserves better" was trending in Boston. I returned to my nearly empty apartment that night and ordered Chinese takeout. My roommates had already moved out, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a phone that wouldn't stop buzzing. I poured myself a glass of cheap champagne I'd been saving for a parental celebration that would never happen. Sam called as I was halfway through my lo mein. "Audrey, what the hell? Your live stream is all over my social feeds." "Is it really that bad?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. The reality of what I'd done was beginning to sink in. "Bad? It's amazing. You finally called them out." "But..." His voice lowered. "Dad's furious. He called me demanding to know if I put you up to this." Apparently, someone from his firm saw it and mentioned it to him. My stomach dropped. "What did you tell him?" "The truth. That they've been doing this to you for years, and they shouldn't be surprised you finally had enough." I felt a surge of affection for my brother. "Thanks, Sam. Are you going to be okay? I know you still have to live with them." "I'll manage." "But Audrey..." He hesitated. "Be prepared. Dad's talking about public embarrassment and ungrateful behavior. I think they're both in shock that you actually stood up for yourself." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Call us immediately. Your public spectacle has consequences." I silenced my phone and took another sip of champagne. Tomorrow would be soon enough to face their anger. Tonight belonged to me and the thousands of strangers who had chosen to witness what my parents had deemed unimportant. Little did I know, those consequences would extend far beyond family drama, and the calls that had begun would soon change the trajectory of my post-Harvard life in ways I never could have anticipated. The morning after graduation dawned with a splitting headache and a phone battery drained from notifications. I fumbled for my charger and shuffled to my tiny kitchen to make coffee, trying to ignore the anxiety building in my chest about facing my parents. As my phone regained power, it erupted with alerts. Text messages, voicemails, social media tags, but what made my stomach drop was the local news notification. Harvard grad's viral moment highlights parental absence at milestone events. The article featured screenshots from my live stream alongside quotes from my impromptu interview. There I was, in my crimson gown, speaking candidly about my parents' absence with the raw vulnerability of someone who didn't realize her words would reach beyond a sympathetic reporter. Before I could process this development, my phone rang. Dad's name flashed on the screen. With shaking hands, I answered, Audrey Elizabeth Patterson. He only used my full name when I was in serious trouble. What were you thinking? Good morning to you too, Dad, I replied, summoning courage I didn't know I had. How was your emergency client meeting? Don't get smart with me. His voice was cold, controlled his courtroom voice. Your little stunt has created a PR nightmare. I've had 3 partners call me this morning asking why my daughter is trashing our family on the internet. I didn't trash anyone. I simply told the truth. You and Mom weren't there. Again. That's family business, not public spectacle. His voice rose. You've deliberately humiliated us to get attention. I heard rustling, then my mother's voice. She'd clearly been listening on speaker. Audrey, darling, we understand you were disappointed. But this dramatic overreaction is concerning. You've always been sensitive. But this attention-seeking behavior is beneath you. The familiar minimizing of my feelings ignited something in me. 22 years of swallowed hurt bubbled to the surface. Attention-seeking? I graduated summa cum laude from Harvard yesterday. The only attention I wanted was yours. For once in my life, I wanted my parents to show up and be proud of me without checking emails or taking calls. We are proud of you, my mother insisted, her voice taking on the patronizing tone I knew well. But adults understand that sometimes work has to take priority over your only daughter's Harvard graduation. My voice cracked. What was this emergency anyway? Another wealthy client's summer home renovation? Dad's 4th golf club membership? Silence. Then my father's voice, dangerously quiet. We've given you everything, Audrey. Private schools, extracurriculars, college tuition, your apartment rent, your credit card. If you want to continue enjoying these privileges, you'll issue a public apology explaining this was all a misunderstanding. The threat was clear. Financial leverage had always been their control mechanism. So that's it? Either I lie to save your reputation, or you cut me off. My heart pounded, but a strange calm washed over me. You know what, Dad? Keep your money. I'd rather have had parents who showed up. You ungrateful, he stopped himself. You have until tomorrow to reconsider. The Patterson name stands for something in this community. Fix this, or face consequences. The call ended abruptly. I sat in stunned silence until another call came through Walter Mackenzie, my father's longtime colleague and my unofficial uncle. Audrey, sweetheart. His voice oozed false concern. I just spoke with your father. He's very upset. You know how much the family reputation means to him. Perhaps you could take down that video and issue a statement? For the family's sake? I understood the subtext immediately. Uncle Walter wasn't calling out of concern for me. He was damage control, dispatched by my father to contain the situation. I appreciate the call, Uncle Walter. But this isn't something I'm going to sweep under the rug. Not this time. After hanging up, I collapsed onto my couch, my body physically reacting to the confrontation. My chest tightened, breathing became difficult, and the edges of my vision darkened the beginning of a panic attack, something I'd experienced throughout college but hidden from everyone. I fumbled for my phone, dialing the one person who had always seen through my perfect facade. Professor Wilson? It's Audrey Patterson. I'm sorry to call you the day after graduation, but my voice broke. Audrey, I saw your live stream. Her calm voice came through. Are you all right? Where are you now? In my apartment. My parents just called and I couldn't continue as tears overwhelmed me. Stay there. I'm bringing coffee and bagels. We'll talk. An hour later, Professor Wilson sat across from me at my tiny kitchen table. As my academic advisor and mentor, she had witnessed firsthand my struggle to meet impossible standards. What your parents did was wrong, she said simply, and what you did was brave. Painful honesty usually is. They're threatening to cut me off financially if I don't apologize publicly. She considered this. And what do you want to do? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to stand my ground, but I'm terrified. I don't have a job lined up yet. I can't afford this apartment without their help. Audrey, she said gently, you've spent your entire life trying to earn their approval through achievement. Has it ever worked? The question hit me like a physical blow. No, I whispered. Then perhaps it's time to stop trying. As Professor Wilson left, my phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed my mother's sister, Aunt Catherine. We'd seen each other rarely over the years. She and my mother had some long-standing feud I never fully understood. Audrey, it's your Aunt Catherine. I saw the news. Are you okay? Her genuine concern broke through my remaining composure, and I found myself sobbing into the phone, telling her everything not just about graduation, but years of emotional neglect thinly veiled as high expectations. Oh, Audrey. She sighed when I finished. I'm so sorry. This pattern goes back further than you know. But you're not alone anymore. Not if you don't want to be. That conversation was the first hint that the calls resulting from my viral moment wouldn't all bring condemnation. Some would offer unexpected lifelines just when I needed them most. The morning after my confrontation with my parents, I woke to an email with a subject line that made me sit up straight in bed. Impressed by your authenticity, potential opportunity at Reed Marketing. The sender was Alexandra Reed, CEO of one of Boston's most prestigious marketing firms. I read the message 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Miss Patterson, your graduation livestream caught my attention not just for its content but for your poise under pressure. Authenticity is rare, and the ability to speak truth with grace even rarer. I'd like to discuss a potential position at Reed Marketing. We're looking for someone with your communication skills and evident resilience. Are you available to meet next Tuesday in our New York office? Alexandra Reed. I nearly dropped my phone. Alexandra Reed, whose company handled campaigns for Fortune 500 clients, wanted to meet with me. Because of my impromptu live stream? After responding professionally, while internally screaming with excitement, I headed to the kitchen for coffee. My phone rang again, the 5th unexpected call since yesterday's viral moment. Is this Audrey Patterson? The woman's voice was vaguely familiar. Yes, speaking. This is Alexandra Reed. I know we just established email contact, but I wanted to speak with you directly. My hand froze on the coffee pot. Miss Reed. Thank you for calling. I'm honored by your interest. Please, call me Alex. I'll be direct. Your video resonated with me personally. 25 years ago, I was you. Different circumstances. Same emotional abandonment disguised as high expectations. Her candor surprised me. I didn't expect that. Most successful people have complicated origin stories, Audrey. What matters is how we transform those experiences. She paused. The job offer is genuine. Entry-level with fast advancement potential if you prove yourself. But I should warn you, taking it might mean permanently damaging your relationship with your parents. Why do you say that? Because your father's law firm represents one of our competitors. There would be professional awkwardness, shall we say. I hadn't considered this complication. Yet something about Alex's straightforward acknowledgement of the potential consequences felt refreshingly honest after years of walking on eggshells around my parents' expectations. I appreciate the warning, I said. But I'd still like to interview. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. My viral moment of vulnerability had opened a door I never expected, but was I ready to walk through it? The next call came from a number I didn't recognize. Audrey, it's Catherine. Your aunt. Aunt Catherine? How did you get my number? Sam gave it to me. Look, I've seen the news. Are Richard and Diana on the warpath? I laughed despite myself. That's one way to put it. Dad's threatening to cut me off financially. She snorted. Typical Richard. Listen, I have a proposal. I have a guest house on my property in Cambridge. It's yours if you want it rent-free until you get on your feet. The offer stunned me. But why would you do that? We barely know each other. A heavy silence fell between us. Because I've watched from a distance as my sister became our mother, demanding perfection, withholding affection. I should have intervened years ago. What do you mean, became your mother? Catherine sighed. That's a longer conversation. But if you're willing to hear it, I have 20 years of family history that might help you understand what you're dealing with. By mid-afternoon, My phone had become a lifeline to an expanding network of unexpected support. My college friend Melissa called from Chicago. "Audrey, I just saw everything. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Money? A place to stay?" My former debate team partner Lucas texted, "Your courage is inspiring. Let me know if you need legal advice about the financial threats. My father's firm would take your case pro bono." Most surprising was an email from Mrs. Winters, my high school English teacher. "Audrey, I saw your graduation video. I want you to know that I always noticed the pressure you were under, the way you would stay after school to avoid going home, how you'd rework already excellent papers until 2 a.m. I wish I had said something then. I'm saying it now. You deserved better, and your accomplishments are extraordinary despite, not because of, your parents' approach." That evening, Emma Chen, my childhood best friend who had drifted away during high school, called unexpectedly. "I've been meaning to reach out for years," she admitted. "But honestly, Audrey, your life always seemed so perfect from the outside. Perfect family, perfect grades, perfect future." I laughed bitterly. Appearances can be deceiving. I know that now. But Audrey, I need to tell you something everyone knew. All our friends, our parents. We saw how your parents treated you, how nothing was ever good enough. What? The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Why didn't anyone say anything? Emma's voice softened. Because you defended them. Every time. When they missed your 16th birthday for that conference, you told everyone it was fine, that the diamond earrings they sent made up for it. When your mom criticized your valedictorian speech at graduation, you agreed it could have been better. Her words forced me to confront an uncomfortable truth. I had been complicit in maintaining the illusion of my perfect family, out of loyalty or fear or simply the desperate hope that eventually I would earn their approval. "I don't know who I am without trying to please them," I admitted, voicing the fear that had been growing since yesterday. "That's the exciting part," Emma said. "You get to find out." As we spoke, a text arrived from Alexandra Reed confirming our interview and adding, "Whatever you decide about the position, I'd like to introduce you to my mentor network. Every young woman deserving of better parenting should have access to the guidance I was fortunate to find." For the first time since my graduation day began with that devastating text message, I felt something unexpected. Hope. Not the conditional kind that depended on achievement or approval, but something more substantial, the possibility of building a life defined by my own values rather than my parents' expectations. The calls continued into the evening. Each one reinforced what Professor Wilson had tried to tell me for years. The narrative of my life didn't have to be controlled by my parents' script. I could write my own story. 3 days after graduation, my story took an unexpected turn. I was at Aunt Catherine's house, settling into her garden guest house, when Sam called in a panic. "Turn on Channel 7 News. Now." I fumbled for the remote, flipping to the local station. My breath caught as I saw my graduation photo alongside my father's professional headshot from his law firm website. The headline scrolled across the bottom. "Top Boston attorney skips Harvard daughter's graduation, sources reveal luxury vacation. Not business emergency." The reporter's voice filled the room. Sources close to Patterson and Associates confirm that senior partner Richard Patterson and his wife Diana were spotted at the Four Seasons Resort in Maui during their daughter's Harvard graduation, contradicting claims of an emergency business meeting in New York. My phone pinged with a text from Sam. Someone at Dad's firm leaked their travel records. Dad is losing it. Before I could respond, the news segment continued. Patterson's daughter Audrey, who graduated summa cum laude from Harvard last weekend, captured hearts nationwide with her candid live stream after her parents failed to attend the ceremony. Representatives for Patterson and Associates declined to comment on this story. I sank onto the couch, stunned. Someone had exposed my parents' lie. The emergency meeting was actually a luxury vacation they'd chosen over my graduation. Aunt Catherine appeared in the doorway. "Well, that changes things. Who would do this?" I wondered aloud. "Richard has made plenty of enemies over the years," she said grimly. "Not everyone appreciates his cutthroat approach to business or life." My phone erupted with notifications as the story spread across social media and local news outlets. The narrative was evolving from busy parents miss graduation to wealthy attorney lies about emergency to cover luxury vacation while daughter graduates Harvard alone. By evening, the professional consequences had begun. My mother texted, "Margot Sinclair canceled her entire home renovation because of this circus. Happy now?" Margot Sinclair was one of my mother's highest-profile clients, a real estate mogul's wife with multiple properties. The cancellation would cost my mother's design firm tens of thousands in fees. Later that night, Sam called again. "Dad just got home from an emergency partners meeting. 2 clients have expressed concerns about the firm's values after seeing the news." "Sam, I didn't leak anything about their vacation," I insisted. "I didn't even know that's where they were." "I know that, but they're blaming you for the original live stream. Dad says if you hadn't gone public, none of this would be happening." The next morning brought the inevitable escalation. My parents released a statement through their personal social media accounts. "We are deeply saddened by the public mischaracterization of our family dynamics. While we regret missing Audrey's graduation due to long-standing prior commitments, we have always provided unwavering support throughout her academic career. We are concerned about our daughter's recent behavior and ask for privacy as we address these family matters." The careful wording made me sound unstable, the troublesome daughter causing problems for her supportive parents. It was gaslighting on a public scale. Hours later, 5 family friends had reached out expressing concern about my mental state. Their messages echoed my parents' narrative so precisely it was clear they'd been enlisted in the damage control campaign. "They're mobilizing their social circle against you," Aunt Catherine observed. Classic Diana tactic. The situation escalated further when my father's PR team released a more detailed statement to Boston business publications, subtly suggesting I had a history of emotional reactions and difficulties adjusting to academic pressure. Alexandra Reed called that afternoon. "I've seen the statements. Are you holding up okay?" "Honestly? No. They're trying to make me look unstable. Classic abuser playbook," she said, matter-of-factly. "When exposed, discredit the victim. I went through this with my own family. Document everything, every text, email, social media post. Forward it all to your personal email, not a family account." Her advice proved prescient. That evening, I discovered my parents had frozen my credit card, the one they'd insisted I use throughout college to build credit. My bank account, which they had partial access to since opening it for me as a teenager, showed a pending withdrawal of nearly all my savings money I'd earned from campus jobs. Panicking, I called the bank. Thankfully, I was able to block the withdrawal and remove my parents from the account. But the intent was clear. Financial retaliation had begun. Sam called late that night, his voice hushed. "They're losing it, Audrey. Dad hired Blackwell PR to handle the situation. They're developing a strategy to reframe the narrative." Blackwell was a crisis management firm known for aggressive tactics. This was no longer a family disagreement, it was warfare. "They want me to do a social media post supporting their version," Sam continued. "They're saying if I don't, they'll withdraw tuition for my senior year." My heart sank. Sam was caught in the crossfire, facing the same tactics being used against me. "What are you going to do?" I asked. Silence stretched between us. Then, I told them no. "I'm applying for financial aid and moving in with my roommate's family for the summer." His voice cracked. "I can't keep pretending, Audrey. Not after seeing how they're treating you." The guilt was overwhelming. "Sam, I never meant to drag you into this. You didn't. They did." His resolve strengthened. "All those years, I thought if I was the perfect son, the mediator, the one who smoothed things over, maybe they'd change. But they won't, will they?" "I don't think so," I said softly. The fallout continued to expand in unexpected ways. Family friends were choosing sides. My mother's sister-in-law called to offer support, revealing she'd always seen through Diana's perfect mother act. My father's college roommate reached out to say he'd witnessed similar behavior decades ago. The narrative was splintering our family's social circle, forcing people to confront the gap between my parents' public image and private reality. By the end of the week, my story had become a flashpoint in wider discussions about Instagram, parenting, the phenomenon of parents who cultivate a perfect family image while emotionally neglecting their children. 3 parenting bloggers had reached out for interviews. A psychology professor contacted me about participating in a study on achievement pressure and emotional well-being in high-performing young adults. What had begun as a private family breakdown was evolving into something larger, a public conversation about parental expectations, emotional authenticity, and the hidden costs of success at all costs. Through it all, I experienced conflicting emotions. Vindication that others could finally see what I'd endured, guilt over the public exposure of family dysfunction, and fear about the uncertain future I now faced without my parents' support. But beneath the turmoil was a growing certainty. For the first time in my life, I was standing in my truth without apology. The consequences were severe, but the alternative, returning to the suffocating performance of perfection, was unthinkable. As Alexandra Reed told me during one of our daily check-in calls, when you stop accepting emotional crumbs and demand the full meal you deserve, those who've been starving you will either step up or step away. Either outcome is better than staying hungry. The morning of my interview at Reed Marketing arrived with a mix of excitement and trepidation. I stood in front of the mirror in Aunt Catherine's guest house, adjusting the blazer I'd purchased at a consignment shop after my parents froze my credit cards. "You look professional and poised," Aunt Catherine assured me, handing me a travel mug of coffee. "Alexandra would be crazy not to hire you. If she does, it will be because of my qualifications, not pity," I insisted, repeating the mantra I'd adopted since the viral video. "Of course," she agreed. "But don't discount how impressive your handling of this situation has been. Crisis management is a valuable skill." The train ride to New York gave me time to reflect on the whirlwind 2 weeks since graduation. While the public aspects of my family drama had been excruciating, they had forced a reckoning I might have avoided for decades otherwise. Reed Marketing occupied 3 floors of a sleek Manhattan high-rise. As the elevator ascended, I mentally rehearsed my interview answers, determined to shift focus from my viral moment to my actual qualifications. Alexandra Reed greeted me personally, a surprise for a CEO of her stature. Close up, she was both more approachable and more intimidating than her media appearances suggested. Designer suit, minimal makeup, and an analytical gaze that seemed to cut through pretense. "Audrey," she extended her hand. "Thank you for coming. Let's skip the small talk and get to the real conversation." The interview that followed was unlike any I'd prepared for. Rather than standard questions about strengths and weaknesses, Alexandra focused on how I'd handled challenges. "Tell me about a time you maintained your integrity when it would have been easier not to. Describe how you've navigated conflict between personal values and external expectations. What's your approach to authentic communication in professional settings?" I answered thoughtfully, drawing on experiences from college leadership roles and internships rather than my family situation. Alexandra nodded approvingly. "You've clearly learned to translate difficult personal experiences into professional skills without oversharing. That's rare in someone your age." As the formal interview concluded, Alexandra shifted gears. "Now, off the record." I mentioned we have something in common. She shared her own story growing up with a father whose pharmaceutical company success came at the cost of his presence, a mother who channeled her own frustrated ambitions through her daughter. By 30, I had everything they wanted for me: executive position, Manhattan apartment, social connections, and I was completely empty inside. Her gaze was unwavering. It took years of therapy and several failed relationships before I understood that achievement without authenticity is just elaborate performance art. "How did you break free?" I asked. I stopped seeking their approval and started building my own metrics for success. "Some relationships can only heal with distance," she smiled wryly. Which brings me to the job offer. The position she outlined was entry-level but with a clear advancement path: junior communications associate with direct mentorship from the senior team. We can offer $58,000 annually with benefits. Not Harvard law money, but enough to live independently in Boston. The real value is the mentorship and growth potential. Within 2 years, you could be handling major accounts. "I accept," I said without hesitation, surprising myself with the certainty. Alexandra raised an eyebrow. "Don't you want to think about it? Consider other offers?" "I've spent my entire life overthinking decisions to please others." This feels right. I trust my instinct. Her approving smile confirmed I'd passed some final test. Welcome to Reed Marketing. We'll email the paperwork today. You start in 3 weeks, enough time to settle your current situation. On the train ride back to Boston, I allowed myself to feel genuine excitement. Not the achievement-based validation I'd chased for years, but something more substantial, the satisfaction of a choice made from authentic self-knowledge. Aunt Catherine was waiting when I returned. Well, how did it go? I got the job. I start next month. Her delight was free from the conditional approval my parents would have offered. No, but what about law school? Or is this really the best use of your Harvard degree? Just pure celebration of my success. Over dinner, she shared the family history she'd promised, the generational pattern of emotional withholding I'd unwittingly inherited. Your grandmother treated your mother exactly as Diana treats you, she explained. Nothing was ever good enough. When Diana got into Yale instead of Harvard, your grandmother didn't attend her graduation either. So, Mom is just repeating what she experienced? Understanding it doesn't excuse it, Catherine said firmly. I had the same mother, but I made different choices. At some point, we become responsible for breaking destructive patterns, not perpetuating them. The conversation was enlightening but painful, revealing how my mother's coldness stemmed from her own unhealed wounds. My father, meanwhile, had been raised with rigid expectations about success and status that he'd transferred to me intact. They're not monsters, I reflected. Just damaged people who never confronted their damage. Exactly, Catherine agreed. Which is why your public stand was so threatening. You exposed the dysfunction they've spent decades normalizing. The following day, I had my first therapy session, something I'd considered in college but avoided, fearing my parents would see it as weakness. Dr. Levine specialized in family trauma and high achievement pressure. Tell me about your earliest memory of feeling you had to be perfect, she prompted. The question unlocked a flood of memories. My mother refolding my kindergarten art project because the edges weren't aligned. My father quizzing me on multiplication tables during dinner. The constant refrain of Patterson's, don't settle for average. I can't remember a time when I wasn't performing, I admitted. Even my rebellions were calculated to minimize actual consequences. That hypervigilance is a survival mechanism, Dr. Levine explained. You learned early that conditional love was the only love available, so you adapted. Over the next 2 weeks, I began constructing a life defined by my own values rather than inherited expectations. I opened a new bank account at a different bank. I created a budget based on my upcoming salary. I researched apartments in Boston neighborhoods my parents would have deemed unsuitable. Professional support continued to materialize. 2 Harvard professors wrote glowing recommendations for my personnel file at Reed Marketing. My debate coach connected me with alumni in communications who offered industry advice. Professor Wilson invited me to speak to her senior seminar about resilience and authentic success, my first opportunity to reframe my experience as wisdom rather than wound. You've always had this strength, she told me afterward. The difference now is you're using it for yourself rather than to earn approval from those who can't give it. While I was rebuilding, my parents continued their campaign to reclaim their narrative. They gave an exclusive interview to Boston Magazine portraying themselves as concerned parents of a daughter experiencing post-graduation emotional adjustment, never directly lying but carefully constructing a version of events preserved their image. The article mentioned my father's philanthropic work and my mother's support of women in design, details technically true but painfully disconnected from their private behavior. Reading, it felt like witnessing expert gaslighting, the subtle repositioning of reality that had controlled me for years. But this time, instead of doubting myself, I recognized the manipulation for what it was. That evening, I received an unexpected email from my father's executive assistant, a woman who had worked for him for 15 years and had always been kind to me. Audrey, I'm risking my job sending this, but you should know, your parents weren't in Maui by accident. Your father specifically rescheduled their anniversary trip to overlap with your graduation after an argument with your mother about setting appropriate boundaries with you. I've witnessed how they've treated you over the years and couldn't stay silent anymore. I'm giving notice tomorrow, but wanted you to know the truth. The confirmation of deliberate exclusion should have devastated me. Instead, It brought a strange peace. The clarity of their choice removed any lingering self-doubt about my decision to break free. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I am not responsible for healing people who won't acknowledge their wounds. My only obligation is to ensure I don't pass this legacy forward." It was the first step in a journey toward authentic selfhood, one not measured by achievements or approval, but by the courage to live according to my own truth, whatever the consequences. 3 weeks after graduation, I was arranging books in Aunt Catherine's guest house when her urgent knock interrupted me. "Audrey," her voice was tense. "Your parents are here." My stomach dropped. "Here? As in? Outside? In my living room?" They just showed up unannounced. I hadn't spoken to them since our phone confrontation. All communication had been through Sam or their public statements. My hands trembled slightly as I smoothed my hair and followed Catherine to the main house. My parents sat stiffly on Catherine's floral sofa, looking incongruous against its casual charm. My father in his custom suit, my mother in designer casual wear, both wearing identical expressions of controlled displeasure. "Audrey," my father nodded curtly, "you've made your point with this. Rebellion. It's time to end this nonsense. No greeting. No, how are you?" Straight to the demand, as if the past 3 weeks had been merely a tactical delay rather than a life-altering awakening. "Hello to you too, Dad." "Mom." I remained standing, unwilling to position myself physically lower than them on the adjacent chairs. "Why are you here?" "We're your parents," my mother said, as if that explained everything. This situation has gotten completely out of hand. The media coverage, the public embarrassment, the consequences. I finished for her. "You're upset about the consequences of your actions, not the actions themselves." My father's jaw tightened. "Watch your tone, young lady. We've come here to offer you a path forward, a way to fix this mess before it permanently damages your future prospects." My future prospects are fine. I've accepted a position at Reed Marketing. The flash of shock on their faces was quickly masked, but not before I caught it. They hadn't expected me to secure employment without their connections. "Alexandra Reed's company?" My father's tone shifted to calculated concern. "Audrey, that's a direct competitor to Westlake Media, one of my biggest clients. Surely you see the conflict of interest." "I do," I replied calmly. "Alexandra mentioned it during my interview. It's not a problem for her, and it's not a problem for me." My mother leaned forward, switching tactics. "Darling, we're worried about you. Living in Catherine's guest house, taking some entry-level job when you could be preparing for law school applications." "I'm not going to law school, Mom. I never wanted to go to law school. That was Dad's plan for me, not mine." "This is exactly what concerns us," she continued, her voice taking on the tremulous quality she used when trying to emotionally manipulate situations. "These sudden, dramatic changes in your life plan, the public outbursts. Dr. Levinson thinks you might be experiencing an adjustment disorder with anxiety." "Dr. Levinson? Your tennis partner who's a dermatologist?" I couldn't hide my disbelief. "Are you seriously trying to retroactively diagnose me to explain away your behavior?" "There's no need for sarcasm," my father cut in. "We're trying to help you. This situation can still be salvaged. We've drafted a joint statement explaining that graduation day was an unfortunate misunderstanding, exacerbated by post-college stress. Carson at Blackwell PR assures us this will redirect the narrative effectively." He slid a document across the coffee table, a carefully crafted statement that absolved them of any wrongdoing while painting me as emotionally overwhelmed and now receiving family support. "You want me to publicly lie to protect your reputation?" "It wasn't a question. We want to put this unfortunate chapter behind us and move forward as a family," my father corrected, his lawyer voice in full effect. "Your apartment lease is up next week. We're prepared to renew it and restore your allowance once this statement is released." The naked transactionalism was stunning in its audacity. Before I could respond, Aunt Catherine, who had been silently observing from the doorway, stepped forward. "That's enough, Richard." Her voice was quiet but firm. "You and Diana need to leave." My mother turned, seemingly noticing her sister for the first time. "This doesn't concern you, Catherine. It absolutely concerns me when you come into my home and attempt to manipulate my niece." "Manipulate?" My mother's outrage seemed genuine. which was perhaps the most disturbing part. We're trying to help her. She's throwing away everything we've built for her over some perceived slight. Perceived slight? I couldn't contain my incredulity. You deliberately scheduled a vacation during my Harvard graduation after promising to be there. A flash of something guilt? Annoyance? Crossed my father's face. Who told you that? The confirmation in his reaction told me everything. So it's true. It wasn't a business emergency. You chose to be in Maui instead. It was our anniversary, my mother said defensively. We deserved some time to ourselves after everything we've sacrificed for your education. The sheer self-centeredness of the statement left me momentarily speechless. Aunt Catherine wasn't similarly constrained. Diana, do you hear yourself? Her voice quivered with restrained anger. Your daughter graduated summa cum laude from Harvard, and you're talking about what you deserved? You've always been jealous of my success, my mother snapped. Don't pretend this is about Audrey. You're loving this opportunity to drive a wedge in my family. Your family? Catherine laughed bitterly. The one you parade around for Instagram but can't be bothered to show up for? The one where your daughter has to achieve perfection just to merit basic attention? You have no right, my mother began. But Catherine cut her off. I have every right. I watched our mother do exactly this to you, Diana. The constant criticism, the withholding of affection, the conditional love, and instead of breaking the cycle, you've perfected it. The reference to my grandmother silenced my mother momentarily. In the quiet, I found my voice again. I'm not signing your statement. I'm not retracting anything I said, because it was the truth. I looked directly at my father. I don't need your financial support anymore. I have a job, a temporary home, and for the first time, clarity about what I actually want from life. My father's expression hardened. Then you leave us no choice. If you insist on this path, you are no longer welcome in our home. Your health insurance, phone plan, and any remaining financial support will be terminated. The threat should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like the removal of the last chain tethering me to their control. I understand. My voice was steady. Is that all? Their faces registered shock at my calm acceptance. They had clearly expected the threat of complete disownment to bring me back in line. Audrey, be reasonable, my mother pleaded, switching tactics again. Your father doesn't mean that. We just need you to understand how your actions affect the family. By family, you mean your reputations. I stood my ground. I do understand. I understand that you're willing to disown your daughter rather than acknowledge that you've consistently prioritized appearances over actual parenting. This is ridiculous. My father stood abruptly. Diana, we're leaving. Audrey clearly needs more time to consider her situation rationally. As they gathered their things, a notification pinged on my phone. It was a text from a family friend with a link attached. Thought you should see this. Just posted on social media. I opened it to find photos of my parents at a luxury resort in Maui, specifically dated on my graduation day. They were smiling poolside with cocktails, without a hint of the emergency meeting stress they'd claimed. Looking forward to our property conversation next week. Richard, the caption read from Bradley Wilson, a developer my father often represented. Congratulations on your daughter's Harvard graduation today. Best celebrated with island cocktails. I turned the phone toward them. Is this the emergency client meeting you texted me about? The color drained from my mother's face. My father's expression turned thunderous. Where did you get that? It doesn't matter. What matters is you lied. It wasn't a last-minute emergency. You chose a vacation over my graduation and then lied about it. This is a breach of privacy, my father blustered. Those photos were from a private account, which makes them inadmissible in court but doesn't make them untrue, I finished. You're not denying it. The silence was damning. My mother recovered first. Audrey, you don't understand the pressures we've been under. After supporting you through Harvard, stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I'm done with the gaslighting, the manipulation, the conditional love. I don't want your money or your connections if they come with these strings. I want parents who show up not just when it's convenient or photogenic, but when it matters. My father's face hardened into the expression I'd seen him use with opposing counsel: cold, calculating, ruthless. Then I suggest you find yourself new parents, because we've given you everything a child could ask for, and this is the thanks we receive. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. When this read marketing position inevitably falls through, don't come crawling back expecting help. After they left, the house fell into a heavy silence. Aunt Catherine put her arm around my shoulders. "Are you okay?" I considered the question carefully. My parents had just effectively disowned me. I should have been devastated. Instead, I felt an unexpected lightness. "I think I will be," I said. For the first time in my life, I know exactly where I stand. My phone buzzed with a text from Sam. "Dad just called raging about your final chance." "What happened?" I smiled sadly, knowing the fallout would now likely shift to my brother. "They're going to focus all their manipulation on you now," I warned him in my reply. "Stay strong, you're not alone in this." His response came quickly. "Neither are you." Team Patterson Rebellion, Party of Two. That small message of solidarity meant more than any Harvard diploma or parental approval ever could. In choosing authenticity over appeasement, I hadn't just lost manipulative parents, I'd gained genuine connection with the people who truly mattered. 6 months after my Harvard graduation, I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of Reed Marketing's Boston office, watching early December snow dust the city. My reflection showed someone I was still getting to know: a young woman with confident posture, stylish but practical business attire, and eyes no longer shadowed by the constant anxiety of trying to be perfect. "Audrey, the client presentation is ready in the main conference room." My assistant, Zoe, appeared in the doorway. I smiled. Assistant was a generous term for our mutual mentorship. Zoe was a recent Boston University graduate who helped me navigate office politics while I helped her refine her strategic communication skills. "Thanks, Zoe. Can you let Alexandra know I'll bring the Westridge portfolio for her review afterward?" The Westridge campaign was my first major project, one Alexandra had entrusted to me despite my junior status. "You have a unique perspective on authentic messaging," she'd explained. "Use it." As I gathered my materials, I reflected on the whirlwind half-year since I'd walked away from my parents' ultimatum. The first months had been the hardest establishing financial independence. Finding an affordable apartment in Boston's Allston neighborhood, learning to navigate adulthood without the safety net I'd always taken for granted. There had been panic attacks at 2 a.m. when my bank balance dipped dangerously low before my first paycheck. Moments of doubt when I wondered if I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Days when the silence from my childhood home felt like a physical wound. But there had also been unexpected joys. The satisfaction of paying my own rent for the first time. The freedom to choose cheap takeout over networking dinners. The relief of no longer measuring every decision against the impossible standard of parental approval. My weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Levine had become a cornerstone of my new life. "You're unlearning patterns established over 2 decades. She reminded me when I grew frustrated with my lingering, people-pleasing tendencies. Healing isn't linear. The greatest surprise had been the community that formed around me. Aunt Catherine had become the supportive parental figure I'd always craved, offering guidance without controlling expectations. Sam visited monthly, our sibling bond strengthening now that we were both seeing our family dynamics clearly. My college friends, many of whom had witnessed my exhausting perfectionism for years, rallied with practical support. Jasmine helped me furnish my apartment with thrift store finds. Taylor's lawyer father reviewed my health insurance options. Emma introduced me to her therapist when I needed specialized EMDR treatment for anxiety. Even more unexpected were the connections formed through what Aunt Catherine called the graduate support group, young adults who had reached out after seeing my story, all navigating similar family dynamics. Our monthly Zoom calls had become a place of honest sharing about the challenges of breaking generational patterns. Through them, I discovered I wasn't alone in struggling to define success on my own terms after a lifetime of external validation. "Miss Patterson, they're waiting for you." Zoe's gentle prompt brought me back to the present. The client presentation went flawlessly, the result of meticulous preparation and Alexandra's skilled mentorship. As the executives filed out with enthusiastic handshakes, Alexandra lingered behind. "Impressive work," she said once we were alone. You've come a long way since that Harvard graduate live-streaming her ceremony. I smiled, no longer flinching at references to my viral moment. Sometimes I barely recognize that version of myself. Good. It means you're growing. She closed her portfolio. Have dinner with me tonight? There's something I want to discuss. Over pasta at a quiet North End restaurant, Alexandra outlined a surprising proposal, leading a new division focused on authentic brand communication for clients navigating public challenges. Your experience gives you insight most marketing professionals lack, she explained. You understand both sides, the public narrative and the private reality. You're offering me a promotion after just 6 months? I'm offering you an opportunity to transform a personal crucible into professional wisdom. She twirled pasta thoughtfully. Your parents taught you to hide your authentic self behind achievement. You're learning to integrate the two. That's exactly what our clients need help with. The symmetry wasn't lost on me, using the very skills I'd developed to survive my family dynamics to build a meaningful career helping others with authentic communication. I'd need a team, I said, already mentally outlining the approach. You'll have resources, Alexandra assured me. But first, how are things on the family front? The question no longer triggered immediate tension. Complicated, but evolving. Sam's applying to graduate schools outside of Boston, his way of establishing independence without the dramatic break I made. And your parents? I sighed. My father still isn't speaking to me. My mother sent a birthday card last month, the first communication since their ultimatum. It included an invitation to coffee. Are you going to accept? I'm considering it. Dr. Levine and I have been discussing boundaries for any potential reconciliation. I smiled wryly. Apparently, just be perfect so we'll love you is not a healthy family dynamic. Alexandra laughed. Shocking. The truth was more nuanced than I could easily express. 6 months of therapy had helped me understand that while my parents' behavior was inexcusable, it was also the product of their own unhealed wounds. My mother's emotional withholding mirrored what she'd experienced from her mother. My father's obsession with status and achievement stemmed from his working-class parents' desperate push for upward mobility. Understanding didn't excuse their actions, but it allowed me to see them as flawed humans rather than all-powerful arbiters of my worth. That shift had been crucial to my healing. 2 weeks after my dinner with Alexandra, I met my mother at a neutral cafe halfway between her Wellesley home and my Alston apartment. The awkwardness was palpable as we exchanged stilted pleasantries about the weather and ordered overpriced lattes. Your hair is different, she finally commented, gesturing to my shoulder-length cut that had replaced the long, carefully maintained style she had always preferred. It's easier to manage, I replied. More practical for work. Yes, your job. She stirred her coffee needlessly. Your father mentioned you're working with some of Westlake Media's competitors. Of course, my father would focus on the business implications rather than my actual career development. I am. I kept my tone neutral. Alexandra has created a position that aligns with my strengths. My mother nodded, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of conversation. After another painful silence, she surprised me. I've been seeing someone. A therapist. She said the word as if confessing to an embarrassing habit. It was Catherine's suggestion, actually. We've been talking occasionally. This was unexpected. That's good. How is it going? It's difficult. She met my eyes briefly before looking away. She asks a lot about my relationship with my mother. About patterns. The implicit acknowledgement hung between us neither quite an apology nor a denial of past behavior. I understand patterns, I offered. It was the closest I could come to extending an olive branch while maintaining boundaries. She nodded, seeming to accept this limited connection. Your brother says you're doing well, that you seem happier. I am. The simple truth required no elaboration. We didn't solve anything in that 30-minute coffee meeting. There was no tearful reconciliation or dramatic breakthrough. But there was a small crack in the wall between us, an acknowledgement that change might be possible, even if the path forward remained uncertain. That evening, I attended my first speaking engagement, a panel discussion for Harvard seniors about defining success beyond academic achievement. Professor Wilson had organized it, insisting my perspective was valuable despite my relatively recent graduation. Looking out at the sea of anxious faces, students on the cusp of entering the world with prestigious degrees and uncertain identities, I recognized my former self in their careful questions about career paths and parental expectations. The hardest lesson I've learned, I told them, is that achievement without authenticity is ultimately empty. Harvard taught me how to succeed academically, but life after graduation taught me how to define success for myself. A young woman raised her hand. But how do you know if you're making the right choices when they contradict what your family wants for you? I smiled, recognizing the question behind her question. The right choices align with your values, not someone else's expectations. It took me 22 years to understand that my worth isn't measured by external validation. I'm still learning to trust my own judgment, but it gets easier with practice. The support network I'd built, what Sam jokingly called my chosen family, continued to expand in unexpected ways. Through Aunt Catherine, I connected with other estranged adult children navigating similar terrain. Together, we created an informal support system for others struggling with emotionally unavailable parents. Our first workshop, held in Catherine's living room with just 8 participants, grew into monthly sessions at a community center with waiting lists and requests from other cities. We weren't therapists, but we offered something equally valuable: proof that it was possible to break generational patterns and build fulfilling lives on our own terms. My Harvard degree still hung on my wall, a reminder of both achievement and the cost of pursuing validation at the expense of authenticity. Beside it hung a simple framed quote from Maya Angelou that Aunt Catherine had given me: "You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody." On the 1-year anniversary of my graduation, I received an unexpected email from my father, the first direct communication since our confrontation at Catherine's house. "Audrey, your mother mentioned meeting you for coffee several months ago. She seems to think there might be a path toward some kind of relationship moving forward. While I maintain that your public actions were unnecessarily damaging to this family, I recognize that our absence at your graduation was a significant disappointment to you. If you're amenable, perhaps we could meet to discuss how to move forward in a manner that respects everyone's boundaries. Regards, Dad." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even a particularly warm invitation. But it was an acknowledgement that boundaries existed to be respected, rather than overcome a concept that would have been unthinkable in the Patterson household a year earlier. After consulting with Dr. Levine, I composed a measured response accepting the invitation while establishing clear parameters for any future relationship. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but for the first time, it felt like a path I was choosing rather than one I was being forced down. Speaking at a Harvard alumni event that spring, I stood at the podium looking out at a sea of faces, some supportive, others skeptical, all curious about the young woman whose graduation livestream had sparked conversations about achievement, authenticity, and the true meaning of success. A year ago, I thought I'd failed because I couldn't earn my parents' approval despite my Harvard diploma, I told them. Today, I understand that true success isn't measured by degrees or parental validation, but by the courage to live authentically despite fear. I paused, finding Sam's encouraging face in the crowd before continuing. My unconventional graduation taught me that sometimes our greatest disappointments can become our most powerful catalysts for growth. By letting the world witness what should have been a private family moment, I inadvertently created a new community defined not by perfection but by authenticity and mutual support. As I concluded my speech, I thought about the young woman who had impulsively pressed go live a year earlier, desperate for witnesses to her achievement, unaware that she was actually taking the first step toward genuine freedom. The families we're born into shape us, but they don't define us, I said. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to create a new definition of family, one built on mutual respect, genuine support, and the freedom to become our authentic selves. As applause filled the room, I realized the true graduation that had occurred over the past year wasn't marked by a Harvard diploma but by the hard-won wisdom that came from choosing authenticity over approval, a choice I would continue to make every day, moving forward. I'd like to end this story by asking, have you ever had to choose between being your authentic self and meeting others' expectations? What helped you find the courage to make that choice? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share with someone who might be struggling to find their own voice. Remember that healing isn't linear, and sometimes our greatest growth comes from our deepest wounds. Thank you for being part of this journey with me, and remember, you are enough, exactly as you are.